And can you tell us anything about the Secret Circle?
Yes, the Secret Circle is the new, my return to TV, as it were. It's a show about a young girl whose mother is mysteriously killed, and she moves back to her mother's hometown, which is kind of this small, rural American town, and she meets me and a bunch of other kind of strange kids, and turns out that we're all these descendants of these witches from the 1600s, so we have these magical powers, and that we're sort of not doing a very good job of controlling. And then she and I kind of fall for each other, but I'm still with another girl from the group, which, you know, when witchcraft is involved with crushes, it usually doesn't turn out very well, you know, from experience. So no, I'm very excited about it. It's going to be, you know, we've only done the pilot. We start shooting the series in a couple weeks, and I'm hoping that we can kind of make the show progressively darker and edgier, and I'm excited. You know, we'll see. It's definitely a show that's very different from Terminator. I wanted to do something that was kind of more a little easier to follow, and a little easier to sort of be a part of, because as you guys know, what I loved about Terminator is it's quite a dark and heavy adult show that you really have to apply your brain to, clearly from the first question that I'm still reeling from. I don't think we'll be having any of those on the Secret Circle, but I'm still very excited nonetheless.
Hello.
Hi, please no questions about time.
That was actually my question. I was going to ask about Alice in the future, but I'll skip that.
No, you can. I'm just
no,
teasing.
it was exactly the same thing. So I'll ask, what about the whole relationship of John and Cameron? Did you ever agree that maybe that could have gone somewhere or not? Or did you not think that really should have been? Because like, there's a lot of fanfics out there, you know. That
yeah. I mean, and I like all that stuff. I've seen all that, so the fan fictions and all that, and I completely, you know, I get the appeal of it. And yeah, I mean, for fun, I would have loved to see it. But I think what made the show as strong as it was Josh's commitment to never just doing something because it would be enjoyable to see. Do you know what I mean? He always had the big picture of what domino pieces would fall down as a result of any kind of missteps. But certainly, I mean, just doing the one scene in the last episode with Summer, where we're on the bed and everything, and you know, that was sort of the biggest moment, which I remember. Actually, I remember Josh coming to me and, you know, because Fox was always pressuring him to bring in more romance and sex appeal and that kind of stuff, and he was always very kind of diligent about, you know, being realistic with the story, and so they really were pressuring him to do it in the last episode, and I think we kind of sensed that we were coming to a close, so he, I remember he came to Summer Night, he was very proud of himself, he's like, I've written you a sex scene. And we were like, okay, and then we read it and we were like, this is really quite disturbing. I'm like, cutting her chest open, and he's like, that's the best I could do, that's the closest I could do. I'm like, okay, but yeah, I mean, I would have liked it, but I think that would have happened, I think people would have had the satisfaction that they desired in the third season when it would have been Allison and John. Yeah.
Also a quick question. I've seen Kaboom. Was it really awkward to film? Or not, because there's obviously not naked people.
Yeah, no, it definitely was awkward at times. Yeah, it was awkward. You know, I and, for instance, Juno Temple, who we have a lot of nudity together and other things together, you know, we'd never done those kind of scenes before in films or TV, and some of the other people were kind of used to doing that, and but it was Greg Araki's a really respectful, you know, director. There's nothing kind of lascivious or perverted about the way he shoots, so you get this, you definitely, when you're doing it, you know that you're just making a film, and he never deviates from his shot list, and I had, you know, it's one of those weird things, I was so, put a lot of pressure on myself to really pull that role off, because it was kind of very specific, and to fulfill what he was trying to do, because I loved his work for so long, that at the time it was a very uncomfortable and very nerve-wracking and sort of experience. And now when I watch it or when I think back on it, it was actually a very good time in many places.
And can you explain the ending to me, because I didn't understand it?
I mean, I think
Or is it meant to not be understood?
No, I don't think it's not meant to be understood, but I do think it's meant to be as meaningless or meaningful as you want. You know, I think Greg certainly, I know, is happy when people walk out just in a daze and sort of like, what was that? And that's okay for him. You know, he just wants you to have enjoyed it or to have gone through an experience. But certainly, you know, from what I could gather from him, there's a lot of, it relates back to his sort of teen apocalypse trilogy that he did in the early 90s, which is this idea of, I think he uses Armageddon and the end of the world as sort of a metaphor for that age when you reach this pinnacle where you don't really know who you are, what you are, or where you're going, and sort of everything due to your hormones magnifying them in drama and despair can kind of feel like the end of something. And it's the end of your innocence. And so I think he just took this metaphorical mental idea and then wanted to play with it in a realistic, semi-realistic, I should say. You know, there's a lot of people who think the whole thing is just a trip, like a hallucination, you know, but it could be, yeah. For me, it's not. But for me also, this whole sort of logistics of the cult and the end of the world isn't necessarily the message of the movie. I think it's also connected with the idea that these kids are all very free and avoiding stereotype and avoiding sort of religious aspects or political aspects, and in that position, they're all blown up. So take that and do with it what you will. I don't know.
Thank you.
I like your
Hey,
shirt.
Thomas.
I like your shirt a lot. I'm trying to figure it out.
Kind of bored one. I want to ask you a question about the final episode. I think it was the final episode. With you and Summer on the bed.
We spent a lot of time thinking about this scene.
I'm going to have to word this question very carefully.
Do. Any children present?
I was gonna say, was it hard filming that scene? But I don't want to ask it that way. Was it difficult to have for you guys laughing? And in the entire series, did any of the cast get the giggles really badly?
We had the giggles 24 hours a day, every day, yes. We were, I mean, that's why I look back on it with the most nostalgia of anything I've done, was it really was for a show that is so heavy and morbid and dark, and we all, I mean, literally all of us just laughed and had a great time. Now, I mean, we took doing the work very seriously, but we took our experience, because we were all so close, very, very lightly, you know, I mean, and yes, that scene that you're talking about, it was really difficult when we started it, because for two reasons, really, was that, you know, you imagine by that point, Summer and I were personally, you know, had a very kind of brother-sister friendly relationship, because we worked together every day for 2 years, and she'd been with somebody the whole time, and when it came to that scene, it was just kind of odd, because we've never really been called to, out of everything we've been called to play with each other, I mean, play together, huh? Yes. As thespians, that's what I meant. We've never had to do anything like that, and I think there are a couple takes where when I had to get really close, that we did crack up, definitely. And Summer's also, you know, she's very particular about nudity and all that kind of stuff, so, but yes, there was a lot of laughter. I mean, particularly, like I said, Lena and I were the two badly behaved children on the set. There was a surprise that I wanted to have for you guys here this year, but maybe I'll bring it next year, of a couple little silly videos that we may or may not have made on the set of the show that should give you a clear idea of our respect for hard work.
Were you happy with the ending?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, I think this also is my feelings on this idea of doing this movie, you know, this follow-up movie, is I think that it's very, very, very hard to close anything that is serialized and is so strongly serialized that for me, I mean, I really enjoy the show. A few of my friends last year, they'd never seen any of it, and they wanted to see the pilot, so we watched the pilot, and I thought, okay, we'll watch the pilot, whatever. And they got really hooked and ended up watching the entire show, you know, so I could kind of watch pieces again, and I think the ending is exactly what it should have been for being canceled. I mean, obviously, I would have loved to see where it would have gone in a third year, but if it was going to end there, I'm very happy with the ending. I mean, I think it's a very sad ending in many ways, especially for John and Sarah, which kind of by that point in the story, we've forgotten that that's where we started, was really with them. You know, we've entered so many other characters. So that is a bit sad, but they'll reconnect, in my head at least. But I think that about what I was saying about the movie is, I don't know if there's anybody in here who liked this other show that I was a really big fan of. It was called Dead Like Me. I don't know if any of you watched it. Yeah, so I loved that show, and I watched it like crazy, and I was so excited when they made the movie. And it's no offense to the movie, but it just was a great disappointment to me, because it just didn't. I realized when I watched it, it's impossible to sort of wrap something up to anybody's satisfaction. Even though the movie was good, you want it to come back again for more, you know. And so, I mean, I hope we get to do a follow-up and a continuation, but it's always very scary to me, you know. I mean, it's hard to sort of elongate something. So, I don't know. I rambled just then, but
thank you.
Thank you. Glad there's some Dead Like Me fans.
Hi.
Hi.
All About Evil.
Yes.
I was just wondering how much of Stephen was kind of teenage Thomas, maybe?
Being a horror fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you asked that. There's 3 other actors from All About Evil here with me. Yes, the role was definitely, I think, an extension in many ways of... I knew the producer who had known me since I was about 16, and then I met the director on the set of Sarah Connor, actually, in season 2, and you know, I read the script, and he's definitely a bit gentler and a bit more. I kind of took these tics and this personality from a couple people I knew back when I was a bit younger, and tried to kind of infuse that into the part. But definitely, my horror film love was I think one of the things that led them to want to cast me. Certainly, yeah.
And welcome to the horror show. Was that your idea, or did they approach you and ask, or?
For the song?
Yeah.
Basically, no, we knew that the plan with the film was to do, which is one of the things I love most about it, was to do this kind of old school vaudevillian tour, and they were going to do this huge premiere at the Castro Theater, which is in San Francisco. It's like an 1,800, 2,000 seat theater, and it was a really huge premiere. And when they told me they were going to do the pre-show, the director Joshua had heard all my music and knew I did music, and said, would you like to write a song to do in the show? And I said yes, but I really didn't know what it was going to be particularly. And then I just sort of had the idea that I wanted to write a song where almost every lyric was a seminal horror film title or character. And then once the song was done, and we put together this whole crazy live performance, and we did it in San Francisco, in Minnesota, and we did a 4-show run of it in San Francisco. It was a fun time. I like that song. I should put it out there so people can hear.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. I like those questions.
Hello.
Hello.
Are you familiar in any way with the books of Secret Circle?
With the books?
Yeah.
I have not read them yet, actually, no.